Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'm participating in the Global Stampin' Video Hop, where we're sharing one-sheet wonder projects. For mine, I'm going to be using Forever Greenery designer paper. You can find this and all the other current products that I'll be using in my Stampin' Up! Store. So I've got my paper trimmer and a piece of the Forever Greenery designer paper cut to 6 by 6. And we're going to start by making our cuts in using the map that you can find on my blog. And here's a quick tip for you. When you're using a dark paper or something that's this heavily patterned, you can slide a piece of Whisper White in here against the ruler, and you'll now be able to read those numbers. So let's just check to make sure I've got my paper in the right place for the first cut, and then turn it and put this down. Actually, I'm going to bring this blade down here, and again we're just going to come right up to the cut, and then let's finish here. And I'm going to put a corner, it's a point at 1.5, sorry, and then the point in the track. So let me just get this situated properly here and give this a cut. So I've got these two pieces. I'm going to lay them off to the side here, and then we're going to bring this in, and I'm put this in so that I don't need to see that side. Whew. Okay, and then let's go here and put these two pieces off to the side, trying to keep them in piles together. That makes it much easier. Now I am going to go ahead and cut this last piece off, but since I don't need it yet, I'm going to set it off to the side here so that when I do cut it, I cut it as part of a group. Okay, and then let's bring this in, and our next cut will be this way, and set this piece aside a second, and let's go here. Here's my mark. Okay. And this piece, oops, is going to go with these. And then let's take this piece and cut these into squares. Now you do want to keep your pieces together for each card. It makes it easier. You can cut them and put them in envelopes. You can, this is its own piece, so I'm going to set it out of the way. And then I have this piece left, and envelopes work good. If you take a piece of grid paper and mark it so that you've got a place for each of your card pieces, that works as well. Okay, and then I've got this piece that needs to be cut yet, that will go with okay, all of these are a piece. So now we've got our 6 cards cut, and let me move this and we'll get started putting them together. For this first card, we're going to be using the Best Year stamp set It's a great collection of sentiments for a lot of different occasions. Let me set that aside. I've got a piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock and my Pretty Peacock ink pad. Oops. And let's just ink up my sentiment. And push my ink pad out of the way and grab my 1.5 inch circle punch. Okay, and put that aside. Let me put these out of the way. Now, next, I used one of the Greenery embossing folders. They come in a 2-pack, and they are a standard embossing folder that's a little bit narrower. Now, I've used it on Whisper White, and this will fit in but leave about this much out. So you're going to emboss, making the first pass, and then you're going to bring this over and emboss, match your design, whichever way it went. Okay, and just put this piece in, and then your cutting plate is only going to go up to the edge of the folder, not over the top, and of course you don't want all of this previously embossed bit inside your folder. So let's take that out of the way and bring in our card base. Now I've got a piece of Pretty Peacock that I've cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored it 5 1/2, and a piece of Whisper White for the inside, and this is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, and then we're going to adhere this piece. You could use the embossed side or the debossed side. Or, if you don't yet have any embossing folders, this could be a plain piece of Whisper White. Okay, and then next, I've got those pieces of Forever Greenery designer paper that we cut at the beginning, and need to put dimensionals all along our cut edge to give this support. Now, your designer paper is not going to be the same weight as cardstock, so do be generous putting the dimensionals on. And I'm even going to fit in a mini Stampin' dimensional down here in this point here. Okay, and then let's do the same thing here. Okay, and then this one needs a couple of mini dimensionals, one up in each one of these points. Okay, just pull the backing off. Oops. Okay, and let's straighten this up on our grid paper. Grid paper is available from my Stampin' Up store. And it's a great little thing to have on hand so that you can match up, you know, make sure that your pieces are straight. Okay, let's make sure my card is straight. And when you've got lots of straight cut lines, this is good to have everything on here straight. Okay. And then let's add some dimensionals to our sentiment here. So a couple of these are going to be doubled. Those are the pieces that are on the top and this outside edge. So let's bring in our ribbon. We'll set this down a moment. So I've got this gold braided trim that's part of the Forever Greenery combo pack, and I'm just doing a figure 8 here. Let's pull my scissors out and cut this end. Whoop. And then I want to give this a little bit of fray so that my ends match, plus it adds a nice little bit of texture. And then we're just going to come here and pick up some couple of glue dots so that my center will stick. And before I stick it down completely, I want to try it with my circle on there. Let's move that a little further. Okay, so we're going to do it like that. And then we're going to give this just a little bit of trim so that we're not hanging off the card. Okay, and then finally, let's put some gilded gems on here. I've got my take your pick tool and oops, we're going to put a couple of these up in here. Use the largest and the medium. I feel like I want another one here. And since I've got an even number, we're going to pop a second one on down here. And there's our first card. If you would like to receive this one in the mail, please leave me a comment below and I'll be happy to send that out to you. So let's move on to card number 2. Okay, and for the second card, we're also going to be using the Best Year stamp set. I've got a piece of Pear Pizzazz and my sentiment and the Pretty Peacock ink. Let's just tap that on. And then we're going to cut this with a Stitch So Sweetly die. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, so we've got our sentiment that's been die cut. It's got this nice shape and stitching around the edge. And then I've got a piece of Whisper White that I've used with one of the Greenery embossing folders. And this time you're going to put it in so that it's in landscape as you send it through. And then your embossing folder, your cutting plate needs to be just right here at the edge of these berries so that you're not up into this at all as you go through. So that's already been embossed with that nice little detail. And I've got a piece of scrap paper here and one of my water painters, and we're going to use some of that Pretty Peacock ink that I've squeezed into the lid and just add a little bit of splatter here. Okay, let's close this up now and put these out of the way. And let's put our card together. So I've got a Pretty Peacock base. This is cut 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And a Whisper White layer for the inside, cut to 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, and close that up. And then we're going to adhere this piece directly to my card base. Love my multi-purpose glue. Gives you just a little bit of wiggle room when you're laying pieces down. Okay, and I've got my sentiment, and then I've got our 2 pieces of Forever Greenery that we cut from our 6x6, and my Banner's Pick-a-Punch. So let me just slide this in. Instead of going to the full stop, I'm just pulling it back so that both corners are even here at the edge of the punch. Oops. And that way, when you do it this way, you can measure the length that you want and not have to guess how long your pieces will be or worry about that extra bit, I should say, that's going to be cut off with the punch. Okay, so let's get these 2 pieces layered together, decide which one I want. And so I'm looking at texture here on the ends, and I want them layered this way. So let's put a little bit of adhesive on the back of these. Okay, and then this guy is going to get dimensionals. And then let's add a little bit of fiber to that. So I've got the very vanilla, this linen-like trim that's in the combo pack, and trying to match those 2 angles there. And I like this little bit of frayed end here, so I'm going to just rub my fingers across here so that you get that same frayed kind of look, and pick up a mini glue dot here, and let's unfold this a second and pick up one for the inside. Put those together, and then we're going to pull these off. Okay. And I want this so that it's just peeking out a little bit. Don't want to cover up all of that goodness from the designer paper. Let's fray this one just a little bit more. Okay, and then let's add one of those gilded gems. So I'll take my take your pick tool here, and we're just going to add one right in there. So that's card number 2. If you would like to receive this card, leave me a comment below, And let me clean up and we'll move on to card number 3. And for card number 3, we're going to use the Best Year stamp set again. And I've got a piece of Whisper White and my sentiment and my Pretty Peacock ink. And let's just tap ink onto the sentiment and stamp here. And then I'm going to cut this with a Stitch So Sweetly die. Okay, so here is our sentiment cut with that Stitch So Sweetly die. It's got that nice scallop and then the stitching around the edge. And we're ready to put our card together. I have a piece of Pretty Peacock cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And my inside layer is 4 by 5 1/4. Let's just get that corner up there straight. Okay, let's move this aside just a moment. So I've got a piece of Pear Pizzazz that I've embossed with one of the Greenery embossing folders that we've been using. And again, to do this, you're going to have to move the folder, put it through once the full width, and then move it to get the remainder. And I've got our strip of Forever Greenery designer paper, and this time I'm using the reverse of what we've been using previously, and I'm going to leave a little plain border here at the bottom. Let's put this on my grid paper, and I'm not quite straight, so that's better. And this just gives some nice texture from the plain to this bold print and then this texture here. And I want to add one last bit of texture to this before we add it to the card. And I'm just trying to get my end of my tearing tape, and I'm just going to run that across the top here. And tear. Okay, and then I've got a piece of the Very Vanilla from that the Greenery combo pack, and I'm going to put my angled end on first. Maybe not. Let's put my straight end on first over here. And then let's see how far we're going to overhang. And I'll trim my angle again so that we're not overhanging quite as much. Thought I had trimmed it just to size. And there we go. So just a little bit of overhang. And now let's add this to our card base, and I'm going to use dimensionals for this. And remember, with your embossing folders, you can always use the debossed side. Okay. And when you emboss cardstock, sometimes you need some additional dimensionals because you've softened the fiber in the cardstock and you don't want it to warp and sag on your completed project. So let's get this down, checking my top and sides. Okay, and then let's put this piece on. We're going to use dimensionals for that. Oops. Okay, move that out of the way. And let's straighten this up. we're going to push this little frayed bit up into the adhesive. And then I want one little gilded gem here. So I've got my take your pick, and we're going to put that right down here in the corner of that layer. And that is card number 3. If you'd like to receive this card, please leave me a comment below. So let me clean up and we'll be on to card number 4. Okay, and card number 4 also uses the Best Year stamp set. I've already cut a piece of Whisper White with one of the Stitch So Sweetly rectangles, and I've set up my sentiment in my Stamparatus. I'm going to ink that with the Pretty Peacock. And let's just close the plate and stamp. And then we're just going to do a little hinge step here for the sentiment on this card. And one more. Okay, so let's take this out and set it aside and move this out of the way. And we're ready to put our 4th card together. So I've got a piece of Pear Pizzazz, and I want to label my layer, my sentiment on that. So the Pear Pizzazz has also been cut with a Stitch So Sweetly die. You get the scalloped rectangles, and then some tag shapes in that set of dies. And I've got my Pretty Peacock base that's been cut 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2, and the Whisper White layer on the inside is 4 by 5 1/4. Just making sure that we're straight, or straight-ish. Okay, and then I've got a piece of Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4, and we're just going to layer on, let's line this up with the grid paper, layer on some of these, all of these pieces. I don't know why I'm saying some, but these pieces that we cut using the Forever Greenery designer paper, and I just want to get them spaced here. It's easier to do that at the beginning. So, whoops, keep moving my piece of Whisper White here. So I'm going to adhere the top and the bottom, and then we'll do the inside pieces. Now you could choose whichever side of this pattern that you like. I am trying to leave a 1/4 inch border here, so I'm leaving 1 square here and 1 square here where I've moved it in, and I'm going to do the same thing at the top, and then it'll be easy to line up the remaining pieces. So I need to move down 1 square and in 1 square, and that will give me that 1/4 inch border. And now we just line these up. So we want them to be evenly spaced. And that looks like it's going to do it. Almost a 1/4 inch between them, but not quite. Okay. Now let's adhere this to our card base, and I'm going to use dimensionals. Oops. Let's close this up and move it out of the way. And let's add some dimensionals to the back of this piece. Okay. And let's straighten that up on the grid paper and put this piece down. And there we go. And I'm not going to embellish this one further. That's card number 4. If you would like to receive this card, please leave me a comment in the video below. For card number 5, we'll be using the Best Year stamp set again. I've got a piece of Whisper White and my Pretty Peacock ink pad and my sentiment. And we're just going to ink that up. And I'm going to stamp on this at an angle. And then I'm going to cut this with a Stitch So Sweetly die. And through the magic of television, I've got that already. This is one of the label or tag dies, and there's stitching and of course a fun shape. So let's bring in our card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4.25, and then our inside layer is 4 by 5.25. Okay, and then I've got my Whisper White layer for the front, which is 4 by 5.25, and then I've got our 2 pieces of Forever Greenery designer paper from our map that we cut at the beginning. So I'm going to adhere these flush to our layer, and I'm going to use my grid paper to line them up so that they're mostly straight and spaced evenly. So let me tell you how many squares. I'm coming in 2 squares from the side, and then let's see, 1, 2, coming down about 2.5 squares. Okay, and then let's do that with this one. And this is that same piece of designer paper that we're using, the reverse side. Lovely thing about double-sided paper is you've got lots of patterns to choose from. So I'm coming in that 2 squares, and then 1, 2, about 2.5 up from the bottom. And let's put this down and straighten it up. Okay, and then let's put dimensionals on the back of our piece of Pear Pizzazz here that's been cut with one of the Stitch So Sweetly dies. This is one of the scalloped rectangles. And we're just going to, again, keeping our piece straight. When you've got lots of very straight pieces to layer on, the grid paper is fabulous for lining that up. And then I've got some of that Forever Greenery trim. And let's just double that over and whack it off with my scissors here. There you go. And I want to add some glue dot to hold it on the back, and then I want a glue dot in the middle to hold it where it's going to overlap itself. And even those up a little bit. Now let me put that face down a moment and put my dimensionals on the back of my sentiment here. I'm just going to lay this down and place this over top. Okay, and of course, got to put some dimensionals on the back of this to give it a little lift. If you would like to receive this card, please leave me a comment below. I would love to send out this whole set of cards. And just say that you would like card number 5. Okay, so there's 5. Let me clean up and we'll do card number 6. Okay, for our 6th and final card for this One Shoot Wonder, we're going to use the Best Year stamp set again. I have a strip of Pear Pizzazz cardstock that I've placed in my Stamparatus and my sentiment stamp, and I've masked off the bottom of that with a piece of washi tape. Let's make sure I've inked it up well, and then we'll pull this washi off and go ahead and stamp. Okay, and I'm going to put this back on and ink one more time. It's a little faint here on parts of it. So let's remember to take the washi off again. Hate when I mask and then forget to take my mask off. Perfect. Okay, let's pull this out and put this aside. And close up my ink pad before I dip my fingers or cardstock into it. And then I'm going to take the Banner's Pick-a-Punch. You can find this punch in the August through December mini catalog. And you can push this all the way up to the stop, but I'm going to pull it back so that the point is almost at the top of the cardstock. Okay, and we get that fun end. And then we're going to stick it in the other end and do the same thing. Oop, not the one I want this one. And for this one, I want both of my corners to be up above. Okay, and I've got a little more that I want to punch with this. So I'm going to give it this piece a banner end as well. And pull this back. Okay. And let's see, those are not going to be quite long enough. So we're going to do this with scissors, which means that my ends won't be quite as even. So I'm going up through the center and then coming in from either side to that center line I've got a little bit of fuzz right here on the side that I want to take off. And we'll do the same thing here, center, and then cut from the sides. Okay, so that's all of my banner pieces that I want to take care of. Got one more piece of that Forever Greenery designer paper, and then I've got my card base here, Pretty Peacock, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, and my layer that's 4 by 5 1/4 for the inside. Okay, I've got a piece of Whisper White that I punched with my 2 1/4 inch circle punch and then embossed with one of the Greenery embossing folders. And let's start and put this together for the front of the card. Okay, and then this piece is also going to be flush. But it's going to run this direction. And then I'm going to put down a piece of tear and tape right along the top of this. Let's give it a quick burnish. It makes it easier to pick the backing off if you give it a quick rub. Take your pick away, and then we're just going to create a ruffle with this ribbon that we've been using from the Forever Greenery combo pack. You can decide the size of your ruffle or pleat or whatever you would like to call that. Let me grab my scissors here, and we're just going to cut right up beside the edge of the card. Put my ribbon away. Whoops. Okay. And then next we're going to add our punched and embossed circle. Again, if you prefer the debossed side, you can use that. We're going to just come right over here on the edge. Oops, don't know where I'm going with those. So from here, we're going to go ahead and put our layer on the front of the card. Okay. Pull my backing pieces off. Okay, and then let's layer these two pieces up. Let's add a little bit of adhesive between them so that they'll stick together. And then I want to add dimensionals here. We're going to do a double stack on this end, and then a single stack here. And let me just test, because We'll double stack up here. Going to move this one up just a little bit. Okay. Put that over so that our ruffle shows, but not quite as much. Oops, it's too close to the edge. Let's bring that back in just a little bit. Okay, and then we need to add these guys in here. They're going to go underneath. Let me flip my tool around here to the spatula end. I thought I was doing this backwards, and yes, indeed I was. So we're just going to add adhesive now across the top of these guys. And slip these in and do them at a little bit of an angle, and then straighten this up. And let's find those gilded gems here and add a couple of those. So this card will be going out to a customer who has ordered with me this month. If you're interested in receiving any of the other 5 cards that I've made today, please leave a comment below, and I will be choosing next week, and I'll leave a comment on your comment that you should be in touch with me with your address. Thank you for stopping by. This was Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. Be sure to check out the other videos in today's Global Stampin' Video Hop. And of course, you can find all of the products in my Stampin' Up store. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell if you'd like to be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.